Can you believe some motorcycles built in the 1990s cost as much as a Corvette? And not just because of the price tag, these machines were bold, bizarre, and way ahead of their time. This was the decade when Honda, Ducati, Bimota, even MV Augusta weren't afraid to burn cash, chasing speed, style, and sheer engineering madness. They brought race tech to the streets, oval pistons, hub center steering, even jet turbines. Some became icons, others so rare and so radical they were built for millionaires or collectors with nerves of steel. Today we're diving into the 10 most expensive motorcycles of the 1990s, based on their original MSRP and just how rare, wild, or groundbreaking they really were. You might recognize a few, but we guarantee some will blow your mind. Ready to see what six-figure dreams looked like on two wheels? Number 10. 1994 Honda RC45. When Honda unveiled the RC45 in 1994, it wasn't just building a motorcycle, it was crafting a weapon for the world stage. Carrying a $27,000 price tag, the RC45 wasn't meant for the average rider. It was engineered for racing, and it showed. At its heart was a 749 cubic centimeter V4, liquid-cooled with double overhead camshaft and 16 valves, pumping out approximately 118 horsepower at 12,000 revolutions per minute. But numbers alone didn't tell the story. This was a precision tool, loaded with race-bred features. PGMFI, electronic fuel injection, magnesium wheels, a close-ratio gearbox, and that signature single-sided swing arm. The twin-spar aluminum frame gave it the stiffness needed to hug corners like a true superbike. And that's exactly what it was. The RC45 was the homologation model for Honda's World Superbike campaign, a race bike disguised for the street. But it launched into a market that wasn't quite ready. Too expensive, too focused, too ahead of its time. Decades later, collectors have changed their tune. The RC45 may have lived in the shadow of the RC30 early on, but today it stands tall as one of the rarest and most respected machines of the 1990s. Not built to please, built to perform, and built to last. Number 9. 1999 MV Augusta F4750 Serie Oro. After years of silence, MV Augusta came roaring back to life in 1999, and they didn't just return, they made a statement. That statement was the F4750 Serie Oro, a machine that wasn't just fast or beautiful. It was a work of art on two wheels. With a launch price around $30,000, this wasn't a motorcycle for the faint of wallet. It was hand-built, limited to just 300 units, and designed by none other than Massimo Tamburini, the man behind the legendary Ducati 916. Every curve, every line, every surface was sculpted with purpose. Beneath the fairings sat a 749 cubic centimeter inline-4 DOHC 16 valves, water-cooled, delivering around 126 horsepower and a top speed close to 175 miles per hour. But the real magic was in the details: a single-sided swing arm, tubular steel trellis frame, Olin suspension, Marcassini wheels, and components crafted from titanium, magnesium, and carbon fiber. This wasn't just performance, it was exclusivity, elegance, and engineering fused together. The F4 Serie Oro wasn't built to chase lap times. It was built to turn heads, ignite passion, and remind the world that MV Augusta still knew how to build a masterpiece. Number 8. 1992 Ducati 888 SP5. By the early 90s, Ducati had already proven it could build fast motorcycles, but with the 888 SP5, they built a champion. Priced around $31,000, this wasn't just another Italian sport bike, it was a world superbike contender wrapped in street-legal clothing. Power came from an 888 cubic centimeter L-twin desmodromic engine, liquid-cooled, producing around 104 horsepower. That might not sound earth-shattering today, but back then, it was more than enough to win races. And it did. The SP5 featured refined fuel delivery over previous models, sharpening throttle response and boosting mid-range power. It was the final, most evolved form of the 851/888 platform, a closing chapter before Ducati unveiled the legendary 916. Beneath the bodywork, you got a trellis steel frame, single-sided swing arm, Brembo brakes, and Öhlins suspension, a setup worthy of the podium. It felt tight, responsive, and purposeful, built with one goal in mind: to dominate on the track. The SP5 may not be as widely known as the 916, but real enthusiasts know this was the bike that got Ducati there. And today, it stands as a rare, coveted piece of WSBK history, where performance, pedigree, and passion collided at full throttle. Number 7. 1994 Bimota SB6. If there was ever a perfect marriage between brute Japanese power and elegant Italian craftsmanship, the 1994 Bimota SB6 was it. With a launch price hovering around $32,000, this wasn't just a motorcycle, it was a design statement with a rocket strapped to it. At its core was the legendary engine from the Suzuki GSX-R 1100, a 1,074 cubic centimeter oil and water-cooled inline-4, pumping out a blistering approximately 156 horsepower. That alone gave it superbike-level thrust, but it's what Bimota wrapped around that engine that made it truly special. Instead of bulky factory hardware, the SB6 featured a lightweight twin-beam aluminum frame designed in-house by Bimota, bringing total weight down to just approximately 407 pounds. It handled like a scalpel and accelerated like a sledgehammer. Every inch of the bike screamed precision and performance. The philosophy was simple: let Japan provide the horsepower, and let Italy handle everything else. The result? A machine that carved corners with poetic grace while leaving superbikes in its mirrors on the straights. The SB6 went on to become Bimota's best-selling model, and for good reason. It was aggressive, exotic, and unlike anything else on the road. A true 90s masterpiece that blended engineering with artistry in all the right ways. Number 6. 1997 Moto Guzzi MGS01 Corser. If most superbikes of the 90s were razor-sharp scalpels, the 1997 Moto Guzzi MGS01 Corser was a roaring V-twin warhammer, pure, raw, and unapologetically Italian. Priced around $33,000, it wasn't built for daily rides or weekend cruises. In fact, it wasn't even street legal. This was a purpose-built race machine, and Moto Guzzi made no compromises. At its heart was a 1,225 cubic centimeter air and oil-cooled transverse V-twin, delivering roughly 122 horsepower. Plenty for a bike with that much torque and soul. Top speed, around 155 miles per hour. But the MGS01 was never about numbers. It was about character. And on the track, it had that in spades. It featured a tubular twin-beam frame, cast aluminum swing arm, and Öhlins suspension, giving it the handling finesse to match its thunderous engine note. There were no creature comforts, no fancy electronics, just mechanical purity and race-bred focus. Only a handful were ever made, each one assembled with care, attitude, and heritage. It stands today as the final, glorious roar of Moto Guzzi's racing division. And for collectors and purists, the MGS-01 Corser isn't just rare, it's sacred. A tribute to old-school racing soul in a world that was quickly going digital. Number 5. 1996 Honda Dream 50R. Don't let the size fool you. This little firecracker wasn't built for beginners. The 1996 Honda Dream 50R may have only had 49 cubic centimeters, but it packed the soul of a full-blown race bike into a pint-sized frame. With a price tag around $35,000, it was one of the most expensive mini racers ever built, and definitely one of the most collectible. Inspired by the legendary Honda CR110 from 1962, the Dream 50R was a tribute to Honda's golden age of lightweight racing. It came with a single-cylinder, air-cooled DOHC engine sporting 4 valves and a screaming redline over 13,500 RPM. Output, a modest 7.2 horsepower. But that power was delivered like a scalpel. Precise, high-strung, and addictively rev-happy. This wasn't a toy, it was a track-only machine, designed with race-spec suspension, a finely crafted frame, and razor-sharp handling. There were no lights, no license plates, and no apologies. Just pure mechanical joy for those who appreciated the smallest details. Today, the Dream 50R stands as one of the most unique collector bikes of the 1990s, not because of brute force, but because of what it represents. Honda's obsession with perfection, even at 50cc. Small in size, big in spirit. Number 4. 1991. Bimota Tessi 1D. If there was ever a motorcycle that looked like it came from the future, but was built in 1991, it was the Bimota Tessi 1D. With a price tag hovering around $36,000, this bike wasn't just exotic, it was radical. Born from an engineering philosophy that questioned everything, the TC1D didn't follow convention. It shattered it. Power came from a Ducati 851 cubic centimeter L-twin, water-cooled with desmodromic valve timing, pushing out approximately 104 horsepower and capable of 165 miles per hour. But engine stats were just a footnote. What truly set the TC apart was its hub-center steering system, a complete departure from traditional telescopic forks. This wild front-end design separated suspension and steering forces, giving it razor-sharp handling and virtually eliminating brake dive. Paired with a billet-machined aluminum frame split into 2 load-bearing halves, it was as much aerospace sculpture as it was superbike. The Tessi 1D wasn't built to please the masses. It was a moonshot, a bold, expensive experiment in pure engineering curiosity. And while it was too complex and too costly for wide adoption, today it stands as one of the most daring designs ever to hit the street. A legend not of power, but of possibility. Number 3. 1992. Honda NR 750. Some bikes chase performance, others chase innovation. But the 1992 Honda NR 750, it chased the impossible. Priced at a staggering $60,000 when new, it wasn't just one of the most expensive motorcycles of the decade, it was a rolling laboratory, built to prove a point Honda never forgot. At its heart was a 747 cubic centimeter V4, water-cooled, but with a twist no other production bike had ever seen. Oval pistons. Yes, oval. Each cylinder had 8 valves and 2 connecting rods, mimicking a V8, while staying within four-cylinder race regulations. The result? 125 horsepower at 14,000 RPM, delivered with the kind of smooth, high-revving magic only Honda could pull off. It wasn't just the engine that stunned. The NR 750 came with a single-sided swing arm, a monocoque aluminum frame, and a sleek, aerodynamic design that looked like it was born in a wind tunnel. Everything about it screamed future, because that's exactly what it was built for. Only 300 were ever produced, and none of them were aimed at profit. The NR 750 wasn't a commercial play. It was a legacy project, a monument to ambition. To this day, it remains one of the most advanced motorcycles ever built, and one of the boldest. Number 2. 1994 Bimota Tessi 1 DSR. Sitting near the top of the 1990s price pyramid is a machine so rare, so mechanically radical, it still feels like a concept bike come to life. The 1994 Bimota Tessi 1 DSR wasn't just an upgrade. It was the final evolution of one of the most daring engineering projects in motorcycle history. With an original price between $75,000 and $85,000, the SR wasn't meant for dealerships. It was hand-built for collectors and engineers who appreciated form, function, and fearlessness. At its core was a 904 cubic centimeter air-cooled Ducati L-twin, producing just over 100 horsepower. That may not sound wild until you see the chassis. The Tessi 1 DSR used hub center steering, eliminating traditional front forks. This separated braking from steering entirely, giving the bike remarkable front-end stability. Paired with a CNC-milled aluminum frame, single-sided swing arm, and carbon fiber bodywork, it was a rolling sculpture of precision. Even the clip-on bars were mounted directly to the steering hub. Every inch of this bike was unconventional, calculated, and beautiful. Only 25 to 50 units were ever made. For those lucky enough to own one, the SR isn't just a motorcycle, it's Bimota's last great technical statement of the 1990s, and maybe the boldest one of all. Number 1. 1993 MTY2K Jet Bike. Just when you thought the 90s couldn't get any wilder, along came a motorcycle powered by a jet engine. Meet the 1993 MTY2K Jet Bike, a machine so outrageous it sounded more like a fighter plane than anything you'd expect to see at a stoplight. With a launch price north of $100,000, it wasn't just expensive, it was insane by design. At its core was a Rolls-Royce Allison 250C18 gas turbine engine, originally built for helicopters, and yet somehow it found a home between two wheels. Output: a jaw-dropping approximately 320 horsepower and enough torque to blur the scenery. It could hit 227 miles per hour and sounded every bit like it. But here's the kicker. This thing was street legal. It had mirrors, headlights, a license plate, and when you cracked the throttle, the turbine screamed like an F-16 preparing for takeoff. The Y2K wasn't about finesse. It was about spectacle, about engineering bravado. It didn't handle like a race bike, and it sure didn't sip fuel. But it earned a place in the Guinness Book of World Records as the most powerful production motorcycle on Earth. And decades later, it still holds that mythic, untouchable aura, because nothing else dares to fly that close to the sun. Looking back at this list, we see more than just price tags. We see bold visions, fearless engineering, and the kind of innovation that only happens when passion overrides profit. Each one of these motorcycles tells a story, not just of speed, but of ambition. of designers and builders who weren't afraid to break rules, challenge physics, or chase perfection down an open road. So what about you? If you could pick just one from this lineup, which would it be? Or maybe you've seen one in person, heard it roar, or if you're lucky, felt it come alive beneath you. Share your thoughts in the comments, your stories, your memories, or just the one that stole your heart. And if you've enjoyed this ride through the rare and remarkable, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell, because there's always another legend around the corner, and we'll be here, ready to fire it up.